Peace and welcome to the Message to the Black Fam show. We have an excellent program in store for you today. Today we're going to be asking the question, has child sexual abuse become an integral part of Black culture in America? And I know a lot of people would think that that is taking it a little far, but we really have to look at this. And if it has become an integral part of our culture, then what do we need to do about it? I wanted to start the program with just a medley of songs that were, it ranged. Some were just blatant, and others, the lyrics were kind of questionable. And I could have probably got music from today too, but my nerves can't take Lil Wayne and Nicki Minaj, so I have no idea what they're talking about. I'm sure I could have pulled something out of there too. I stopped buying music in like 2004, 2005, except for United Front, so I stuck with what I knew. But you have songs in there saying blatantly, I want somebody underage. Blatantly, she was 13. It was good. Even if I go to jail and get beat down, it was still good. That kind of thing. People wonder why War on the Horizon has such what some people consider an extreme policy and idea as far as what should be done to child sexual molesters and pedophiles. That kind of attitude is why we need that, is why we need to be so, what would you call it, militant or so strong in our position, because you have people who say, if I get beat down, if I go to jail, it was still good. You have Faith in there saying, you were just a young thing and I'd let you get a taste of my love. Well, how young were they? We don't know. Could have been a 19-year-old, could have been a 13-year-old. There's a lot of people we see now, older women that are molesting junior high students, high school students. It's not far-fetched. So we really don't know what she's talking about. Either way it goes, she's saying, I have to give you time and let you grow. Basically saying you're not capable of you're only capable of a physical relationship with me. You're not mentally ready to be with me. So either way it goes, that's predatory. We have a lot of these lyrics and songs going around in our community that we accept, we don't say anything about, we sing along to because they sound good, and we never think about what we're really saying, what they're really saying. In part one, we spoke to survivors of child sexual abuse. They were mostly molested by older children, so that brought an interesting slant to it, because usually when we think about child sexual abuse, we think an adult doing it to a child, but it's maybe even more common for children to do it to each other. So that was interesting, and I wanted to get that out there to make sure that people knew how commonplace this was, so you would understand the need for these conversations and to keep it going. And it's not just in music. I'd say about a month ago, I was trying to educate myself a little bit. I missed most of the 70s. I missed like 95%. So I really was never into blaxploitation. So I said, you know what? This had a major impact on Black culture. Let me see what it's about. So I said, well, I'm going to start at the beginning. And why did I do that? I watched Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song. And after the first 2 minutes, I was ready to turn that movie off. The opening scene was a little boy getting molested by, I guess, a prostitute or something like that. And I put on Facebook, I'm about to watch this movie, and everybody was liking it and saying, yeah, good movie, good movie. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, okay, I'm about to turn this off. And they're like, no, keep watching, keep watching. I'm like, I don't want to see a boy getting molested. What am I going to watch for? They're like, no, you got to see it through different eyes. Just keep watching, you'll understand. So I said, I'll give it a few more minutes. A couple more minutes later, I'm seeing faggots and fairies and phalluses and sparklers and it was just beyond anything I've seen before. And that was kind of the beginning of real Black cinema and all the junk that we watch today. And I think later on, they said maybe it stabbed some crackers or something like that. But we can't look for a silver lining in the midst of degeneracy. Look at what they're feeding you. You don't have to go through sparklers and molestation and faggots to get to somebody killing a devil. And we do that a lot. We are accepting of this. Even we see with R. Kelly. We know that he did it. I mean, nobody's that dumb. And people pretty much accept that he did it, but they'll still say, oh, but he makes good music. So it's okay for him to do what he did as long as he makes good music. And I've even seen Mystical now is trying to make a comeback. And as far as I know, he wasn't a child molester, but he was a rapist. He videotaped it, served time, and now he's got a deal. He's about to make a comeback. So we don't value Black womanhood. We don't value Black female children. And it's become a part of our culture. The music, the cinema, our attitudes support it. And even as we saw on the last show, when our children are perpetuating this, it's a problem. And if the children being involved in this doesn't point to the fact that it's become an integral part of our culture, I don't know what does. So I really wanted to do this program, and I know I'm really not qualified to do it. I'm not an expert in this. So luckily, I have my comrade here who is definitely an expert in child sexual abuse. He likes to say that he's not a cleanser, he's a healer. But truth be told, he's both. He's the foremost expert in my mind on sexual abuse and its impact on the Black community. I think that he is more knowledgeable on this subject and has more of an ability to heal people who have experienced this than even some people who have gone to school to study this. He's very compassionate, very passionate about healing our community from this abuse. So with no further ado, I'm going to stop babbling and bring on the resident expert, the Irritated Genius Southeast. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. How you doing?
I'm good.
Now, I want to let you know, and before we start the program, just so you know, my little daughter, she was banging on the window. She would not allow me to do the program without bringing her in here. I don't know why. She's never been this persistent, but I said, you know what? Maybe this means something. So I got her sitting right here in my lap as we talk.
I tell you what it means, what I've been telling you. She needs to have her own program. Just because we don't know what she's saying don't mean other babies don't know what she's saying.
And I think she would do it too.
From what I've seen, I think you're right. She has an opinion and she is not afraid to say what's on her mind.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I am so glad to have you with us today. Definitely. Was that enough kudos on the way in, or you need some more?
Oh, I was listening to this introduction. I was like, who is this person? I can't wait to hear this brother. He sounds like he's serious. And lo and behold, it was me. So I feel very flattered and really appreciate that. And I'm honored to be on your program.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I don't even know where to start. This is definitely, to me, something that has just become so common in our community. A lot of people think it's a rarity. I think it happens more times than not. I even used to write in a newspaper years ago, and I wrote an article about how we do not value our Black female children. And I do want to stress this happens to boys quite often too. But I guess just our culture in general, we tend to blame the person. Like if a white woman is raped, she can be 30 years old, probably wasn't even raped, probably gave it away. And they'll say, oh, yeah, this young white girl was brutally assaulted and blah, blah, blah. But let it be a Black girl 10 years old. And it's like, yeah, this Black woman was possibly, assaulted. I mean, it's like totally different. The language, the attitude. Everything. The white woman is always considered to be innocent, and the Black child or woman, no matter how young, is always considered to be guilty, or she was fast, or she was a whore or something like that. How did this attitude come about?
Basically, quite frankly, the easiest way to say it is slavery. The process of enslaving African people wasn't just about the physical abuse and taking labor from our people for free, which in and of itself, is a crime that's unspeakable. No one wants to go and do the best at any job that they can do and give their time, energy, and effort to something and then not be adequately rewarded for doing it. And if they're not going to be adequately rewarded, they don't do it. So that's bad enough. But part of, one of the really insidious things that was done to our people was removing from the Black man the thing that really gives him the exceptional amount of value in his manhood, which is being able to protect and take care of and provide guidance for his women and children. And in order to destroy the fabric of Black families so that they would not have strong Africans to deal with and resist, and also in order to have direct access to our women sexually, what the Europeans did during slavery was that they depicted Black women as sexually out of control, sexually erotic, sexual beings that were not human beings that had feelings or character or anything of that nature, but were just basically sexual toilets that anybody who was around them would have to deal with sexually, because you can't turn off your sexual desire for them because they're sexual beings, but they have no value. And by putting black men in a position where the women who we see as mother, queens, our wives, our daughters, and the women who we would give our life for or take lives for, by putting black men in a position where we had to watch on a regular daily basis as our women were taken from us, raped, continuously brutalized, and destroyed, what happened is that there's some real serious psychological things that happen to a man. It's only so long that a man is going to blame himself for not being a man before he's going to either do a few things. One, he's going to lash out at whoever he sees that's taking his manhood, which means so many brothers went out there and killed those white enslavers, or tried to kill them and died in the process. He's going to flee. So many brothers said, I got to get out of here. I can't do this. I cannot be in this situation watching this occur. I got to get somewhere, and I'll come back later and try to recover, but I can't. This is not life. Some brothers didn't choose that path. Some brothers chose the path that, and it's really unfortunate, but then it becomes since you can't blame the white male and deal with him adequately and fight against him, because if you do that, it's going to mean your death, or you're just afraid to do it, so you're too afraid to do that. And since you don't want to run away and take the chance of getting caught and killed or have your leg cut off, whatever the case may be, then another option you have is to start blaming your women for what happened to them, since you can't defend them. So instead of them looking at you and you feeling guilty because you're not doing your job as a man, you change it and you buy into the European concept. She's just a whore. Because if she's a whore, then it's not your job to protect her. And then if you're not protecting her from the rape and torture that she's facing, then you haven't committed any crime because she's a whore. If she's a woman of value, this your mother, then it doesn't matter what happens to you. You have an obligation to protect her no matter what the consequences are. And so, to a large degree, millions of our men and males were reduced to psychologically in order to survive. Because, we talked about some options, the other options to kill yourself. Well, if you're going to survive this, you have to find, and you're going to stay there and survive this, you have to find some kind of mental way to justify allowing these white demons to rape and brutalize your women. And so since the white demons have given the excuse that it is their right and these black women are just sexual and that's how they're made, and since you don't have in your own mind any other options that you're willing to take in order to psychologically deal with the fact that you're failing in your absolute state of manhood, you have completely failed as a man to protect your women and children, we surrender to the concept that the black woman is just a piece of trash and a toilet for sex, and then we allow the Europeans to do what they do, and then we can even start participating in it. So now, as opposed to feeling bad about the fact that we're not men, we're now changing the paradigm, and now we're participants in it. And what happens is, even out of slavery, every 20, 30, 40 years, the European will change the paradigm, but it doesn't change the way that the mind processes the information and the psychological way we deal with it. So, for instance, we just talked about what we did during chattel slavery. Well, if you bring it up to today, the paradigm is very, very similar. Your manhood is not in necessarily your physical protection of your women, but now you can't get a job as a brother. All your life growing up, you see that the odds are stacked against you as a black man. And if you're a strong black man in school, with the police, in society, in your own home, everywhere you look, you're being assaulted. So instead of saying, hey, we're on the bottom and we have to fight to get to the top and gain the respect of our women, children, blah, 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 it's easy to make your woman the victim of, oh, she's just a hoe, I'm going to go play these hoes, I'm going to go do all of these things to these women, because then you don't have to deal with the fact that you don't have power and that you are not protected. And so that's kind of the same psychological thing that we were dealing with hundreds of years ago. No matter how they changed this system of enslavement in the Americas, we still deal with the same psychological realities.
Now, when did women begin to internalize this? Because even on the previous program, we had someone who said when she finally told, she thought that her family would protect her and everything would be great. And I think she began being molested at the age of 9. And her aunt told her, well, you always have been fast. So it's like women have internalized this too.
Yeah, and I want people, and this is not an excuse, we're drawing a timeline and a set of circumstances to have our people understand what happened.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back to our history in Africa prior to being brought to these Americas, or prior to European or Arab invasion, what you find is that you have a civilized group of people who do not have something in their culture where people violate and mistreat each other as part of their culture. So it's a foreign concept. We know that foreigners have come in and done it, but we won't do it to one another. So, for the most part. So with that said, then we have to bring ourselves to this continent and say, okay, now we're being brought here. And not only are the men forced to watch as the women are brutalized and treated like that, not only psychologically does it make the men give up, but consider this. Historically, and this is generally true in all species, but particularly in the black family, the black man is charged with the responsibility for protecting the family. So for the black woman, when something is happening to her that is a violation, she looks to the man and say, what you gonna do? And then the men get together and they take care of business. Well, imagine hundreds of years where our women are looking to us and say, what you gonna do? And we are not doing anything, not even capable of doing anything. It creates in the mind of black women a psychological imbalance to say that our men don't have power to protect us. They're not really the men. The white males are the only men. Now, for the women who hate the white males and won't accept that, then their hatred turns to something else. So if they mad at black women for being raped by these white males, instead of saying our men are at fault because these sisters don't want to abandon their men, so they don't want to hate their men, so they're hanging on to their men, then they point the finger and say, that little female, she likes being with them crackers, it's her fault. So they blaming the female because they don't want to blame their partner, the black man, because they already know that he's down. So now, because that sister can't get the men to do what their job is to fix the problem, but she doesn't want to turn on the men, she turns on the females. Well, if you fast forward decades past that, even centuries past our enslavement, what you end up with is situations now, again, we've left the plantation, but we have not had a period of time to sit down and talk about the things that were occurring on the plantation, how it has changed our culture, how we have pedophiles in our family, homosexuals, and all of this new realities that we face. So instead of discussing these things, we just live in our everyday lives. And what happens is, so you get a black woman who loves that black man and then finds out he does something sexual to a child. And very much like our ancestors who were dragged over here on ships and had no idea what was going on with them in terms of just the fact that it was massive violation that they couldn't put words to. You have a female who does not understand why this is happening, cannot verbalize really the level of sickness, and does not know how she's going to get this situation dealt with. And so she chooses, in many cases, to avoid dealing with it, or, to your point, instead of saying this male is a monster and is participating in some sick madness and we have to get rid of this male because of what he's done, if you blame the female and say, well, she was fast, she asked for that, now you don't have to do anything and you can go and feel better about the fact that as an adult or a black woman who's expecting protection from your men and now seeing that your men are now violating your children, that will put you in a situation you have to figure out what you can do about this situation. That's a little bit too much for most of our people to navigate. And so in many instances, we find another alternative method to deal with it, and that's one of the ways sisters deal with the problem.
That's very interesting. I've always been intrigued by that because I've noticed even sisters who are very, very much feminist and anti-men, a lot of times when they hear about a celebrity having some kind of misconduct or even like R. Kelly, they'll say, well, I mean, she wasn't a virgin. She looked like she knew what she was doing to me. And I was always thinking like, okay, but is something wrong that somebody that young would know what they were doing? That would be an issue. So I was always intrigued by how black men and black women will do that. Like I said, even the most feminist women a lot of times will still blame the victim. So definitely good.
If I can just elaborate a little bit, because I'm not making any excuses whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
This is more because there were times when I was like the worst of the worst, but this is the reality. I never considered this because innately I just knew this was something that was wrong, or maybe it was something that was taught to me when I was young that I don't remember, but there's just a part of my internal operating system, whether it was through the way I was educated or whether it was just something that's naturally inside of me. It freaks me out, the concept of somebody sexually targeting and molesting a child. I don't know if that's something I was taught or if I knew, but what I do know is from the time I started learning it was happening, it was a thing that was infuriating to me. What I never considered, it took me many years to come to this conclusion and realization. The reality of it is, yeah, it's great to say that as African people we know right from wrong, but I have not really considered the fact that we spent hundreds of years on plantations being forced to do this stuff whether we wanted to or not. And hundreds of years after the plantation, at this point, at least over a century, with these things continue to go on and no re-education as to who we are as African people, what the Europeans are, and what they did to us to change the nature of the way our family structures operate, what is right, what is wrong, what is acceptable, what is unacceptable. So we actually are living in an environment where if we sit back and just be honest with ourselves, I'm not talking about justifying anybody's behavior, but I'm saying we don't have an education system that teaches black people what is acceptable behavior and what is not acceptable behavior, so that when a situation like this occurs for a black person, somebody is messing with their child, unless they just had that same thing I had, that innate anger and hatred towards the concept because it just so greatly scrapes against you, it's so bizarre and strange. I can see where it can almost freeze a person because it's so egregious a crime, you almost don't even know what to do or how to process it in your mind. And I think that that's something we really have to consider.
That's true, too. And I know you mentioned a lot about when we were still in Africa and it being so different than how we are now. And I believe I was talking to Brother Omowale from United Front, and he brought up a good point that in most African cultures, the older children, the adolescents, do not mix with younger children. They go through their rites of passage, they're taken away, and when they come back, they're basically considered men and women. They can get married, whatever. Do you think that that's something that we could utilize to prevent some of this, at least maybe not the adult to child interaction, but considering how often it's an adolescent doing it, that there should be a separation between adolescents and children, because a lot of times it may be a babysitter or an older child or whatever that's introducing children into these sexual acts?
I think it's absolute, particularly in the culture we live in, it's mandatory because you have young people, boys and girls, who are coming into puberty and having their sexual hormones going off. And then you have a corrupt society that through every form of music and entertainment, television, radio, and everything else that they have, trains African people or trains anybody watching to be predatory and to take advantage of others. So you got the predatory teaching, the over-sexualization they're seeing on television, and then the natural hormones going, which would make it easy for an individual to make the decision at a young age, as opposed to trying to navigate the clumsy process of youth and a boy talking to a girl and a girl talking to a boy, to just experiment on someone you have power over who won't say no because they don't know what they're doing, that inclination becomes much easier in a society that promotes it, and that's what we're in. So I think, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, when he laid down the foundation of the rules that were set forth with men, women, and children, how we would interact, brothers being around other brothers' wives, children at a certain age not being with their father, the girls at a certain age not being alone with their fathers, and all these different things. A lot of people thought that they were way too many rules. And what happens is those people don't understand. He didn't necessarily give our people a blow-by-blow breakdown like Warren Horizon of why he was making those decisions. However, what the messenger did do was he looked at the history and the ramifications of the impact of the sexual deviance that was forced on us by Europeans and its impact on our people today. And he set in place rules similar to ones you were talking about that would create generations of people who, even if they had some of that stuff that had occurred in their family, would be getting away from it because the way that their families are structured, it would prevent the male who would have that inclination because it had been in his family from even having the opportunity to do it. And the woman as well, so that he could clean our people up, stand our people up, and give the future generation an opportunity to grow without knowing any of that stuff or having any of those inclinations, so that then they could lay the next foundation with a sexually clean slate so that we could be African, human, whole people again.
I agree. It seems like this inappropriate sexual conduct just comes at children from all sides. I mean, I remember growing up, there was hide and go get it and catch and field football, sometimes even playing Barbies with little boys that get their action figures and do their inappropriate things. I mean, the whole atmosphere, it seems like growing up is not age appropriate in our communities. And sometimes the parents may not be aware, sometimes they are. But looking back now, it was very unhealthy. And I even remember in school, starting in junior high and high school, there were teachers who quietly, but it was known, were having inappropriate relationships with children. So you weren't even necessarily safe at school. I remember there was one male gym teacher whose office was right near the girls' locker room, and he'd keep the locker room door open, so maybe he could catch a peek every now and then, and it was rumored that he had done some things. So it's like, as a child, it's coming at you from all angles, and I don't think we're doing a good enough job protecting them from all of these things.
I agree with you 100%.
Now, would you consider the games like hide and go get it, catch and field, football, all that kind of stuff, would you consider that molestation or child abuse, or does it depend on the age of the children, or what do you think about that?
I would consider it highly inappropriate because, and I remember we used to have we called it Freaky Friday. And basically, when the bell rung at Freaky Friday, this is in 4th grade, 5th grade, you go outside and you start grabbing the little girls in different places. And they would have to run so you wouldn't grab them and touch them, and they would have to fight so they wouldn't be touched. And it's all a consequence. It's definitely inappropriate. It's a consequence of being under European rule in a European society for hundreds of years, quite frankly. And it's the kind of thing that creates real difficulty because you want your children to grow up around other young people so that they can develop. But because, particularly now in the 2000s, I mean, it's so terrible of an environment, you really don't want your children around anybody else and their families and their children because very few of our people are creating hard, fast rules for behavior and watching children and speaking about these things to our children so that we knew about them. I remember when I was young, and as a boy and all, if everybody else doing it, you're going to do what everybody else does. And I never forget, my mom told me, because I told her about Freaky Friday, and she was always allowing me to talk to her and wouldn't get mad at me, and she would talk to me. And she told me how one day in her class when she was in, I don't remember what grade, 6th grade or whatever grade it was, some guy in the class grabbed her breast. and how bad it made her feel. And that was not that I wasn't attracted to girls, I still was, but that was my last participation in Freaky Friday, because when she told me that, when I'm trying to run around and grab a little girl, I'm no longer seeing some little girl that's just this thing I want to grab, hormones. I'm seeing my mama, and I can't, that ain't, it just didn't jive when she told me that, So it's very inappropriate, and it's some things we have to really address.
Definitely. I was even seeing a story not too long ago about an 11-year-old girl, I think it was in Texas, who they said was sexually assaulted by at least 20 men and boys in her town.
Yeah, it was, I think she was what they call Latino or Hispanic, and the boys were black, and the community is trying to defend the boys, saying that the Hispanic is setting these guys up.
Oh, that was a Hispanic girl.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going to focus on our community today. The story I saw made it seem as though she was African American. We don't promote that being in any community, but we always worry about our own community first. Wow. It's just crazy how far we've come, because I know if it was that way when we were growing up, I can only imagine it's 100 times worse now. I even, after the last program, I had people tell me that they just realized on that program that they had been molested in some way. They didn't even realize that that's what had happened to them.
Yeah, and that's another thing, again. We were talking a little bit about this earlier. One of the main things that we have to do is what we call awareness. And I'm not just talking about the cracker awareness. Hey, here's a poster saying child abuse happens. No. We're African people in a forced reality of insanity, sexual insanity in particular. The reason we created what we call Predators in Our Midst, and the reason it's available for free right now, even though it is what I would say for me is my prized work in the sense, is what means the most to me, because there's nothing more important to me than protecting black children from sexual abuse. The only thing I can think is more important than that is dealing with a final definitive in a manner with white supremacy. But other than that, if you want to pick a real particular issue, I don't think that there's anything more savage than a person sexually violating an African child. Even any child is bad enough for the death penalty, in my opinion, but to do that to a black child, anyone is planet, to me, is a crime that's unforgivable under any and all circumstances, and should be met with the greatest of penalties. But the problem is, or one of the problems is, this reality was forced for us, and we haven't had a time to step back and really analyze and put it into a construct, a paradigm where we can explain to our people, okay, here's a practice called pedophilia that was created in the caves and hills by the white race. Here's what they used to do for thousands of years. Here's normal African behavior and sexuality with a man and consenting woman. We don't participate in behavior like that. Whites do. However, now that they brought us here in enslavement, here are the things they did to us to create this and put this as part of our reality and part of our normalities in our communities, and it's something that we need to root out. So children, never do this to another child, because it's a crime that should be punishable by death. It's European, it's white, and it's not anything that has anything to do with you as an African. Adults, protect your children, because here's the pattern of behavior. It's been going on for hundreds of years. It could be your brother, it could be your uncle, it could be anybody in your family, and they don't just molest little girls, they molest boys too. So you have to be open with your children. We have not created the kind of black, not Negro awareness, but black awareness to the problem that we can actually do something to begin to resolve it. And I think that that is one of the first stages, which is, again, for anybody who hasn't seen it, it's a very critical piece of documentation. It's free. Go online to waronthehorizon.com, click the tab that says effeminization, and go to the very bottom. The full video is up there. It's called Predators in Our Midst. And it's designed to help people who have been victims of sexual abuse to understand that it was not their fault and to understand how to heal from it. It's also designed for parents to protect your children from sexual abuse. And it's also designed for children to be able to watch and be aware of things that are happening so that they don't participate in by not knowing what's happening, that they are aware that people want to do this, and it's also designed so we can understand how dangerous it is for people to tune into this television and this media because it promotes this kind of misbehavior.
Yes, sir. Now, I do want to get into the controversy of those consequences you were talking about. I'm going to do that in a minute. But I do want to take a moment because you did mention earlier that boys are victimized as well. And that's something that we do not spend a lot of time on. As a matter of fact, I think you're the only person that I can think of that really focused a lot of energy on that, which is sad because a lot of boys are going through it. And I wanted to give a shout out. I think his name was Keon Dooling, came out recently and shared his experience with child sexual abuse to help other people. Very positive, had a strong black woman by his side. So I thought that was a very good thing for people to be exposed to, even though I'm sorry that happened to him. Can you speak a little bit to the men and boys that this has happened to?
Yeah, when we first started doing this, I was first introduced to the fact that people were sexually abused by a sister who was very, very close to me. So, of course, that made me very upset when I heard that. But, the idea of homosexuality in my mind was something that white folks did. It was like something that crackers did. So I wouldn't even have understood that a male would do something to a boy because I didn't understand that homosexuality was an impulse that had anything to do with black people. And it was so far from my reality that when I was talking about sexual abuse, I was focusing primarily on black women. The only time I would talk about what's happening to brothers when they go to jail, because I was saying, hey, we know this thing can happen in prison. I had no idea that that this had been going on since the days of the sex farms in the early, in the late 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, that this has been going on at the breeding farms, and that, this homosexualization and pedophilia of grown males with little boys had been going on for decades. So I was doing the research, not just I, but we, all of the groups that were doing it, people I was with were doing the research, and we were primarily talking about our daughters. And what started happening was we're given all of the impact it has on our daughters, the things that they get involved in, the drug use, the lack of self-respect, the lack of ability to maintain psychological stability, just all these different things, becoming very promiscuous and everything. And then I would say it's probably about 4 or 5 years after we really start getting into it deep, that I really started having brothers come up, because I was talking about the things of sexual abuse in prison, and then I started seeing that more and more sexual abuse was happening with black men, and we started speaking on it more, and brothers started coming up and saying, brother, I never told nobody this, and these are brothers I respected. I want you to understand, these are not any man that anybody. These brothers had never shared this with anyone. We talking about warlords, warriors, black men who have, great respect in the community, just real strong, solid brothers. And they would come to me and say, man, thanks for the work you did, bro. I always blame myself for the fact it happened to me. I felt like I was a coward. I must have wanted it, because if not, I would have fought harder. And the guy might have been 5 years old, and his 17-year-old or 20-year-old uncle did something to him, and he's beat himself up his entire life, leading him to drug use and all this kind of stuff, feeling like he done something wrong. He did something wrong. And I'm like, the first time I heard, like, I almost collapsed, but I had to stay strong because I can't let this person see me collapse. Then they'll never told them. So I stayed strong. But I was like, man, I don't want to know that this is happening to my brothers, Not that I wanted to happen to myself. I didn't want to know it happened to my sisters either, but I'm saying it's expanding the horizons, and it's gotten to the point now that I'm quite frank, I'm used to brothers coming up to me telling me, yeah, somebody did this to me when I was younger, and kind of messed me up a little bit. Or a lot of times, a woman that molested them when they were younger, and it kind of messed me up. I've heard it so much now that it doesn't. I pretty much expect it, and it's just a matter if the person gonna share it with me or not. At this point, so it's a major issue. It's more than it is. It's more likely that it does happen than it doesn't happen, particularly with the increase of black women molesting children. It's now much more likely, very likely, that a black male will get molested before the age of 18.
Wow. Well, that gives me two questions. Number one, because I never believe white people's statistics. Number one, how prevalent do you think this is today as far as happening to little boys? And number two, what are the effects that it has on a male when it's not another male doing it, when it's a female? Because I think a lot of times we think, oh, well, he's just a big man now. He's just, we act like it's cute, and it's not cute. So when you say it affects these brothers, even if it is an older woman doing this to them, what are those effects?
Okay, and let me just get those statistics. And these are not Department of Justice statistics suggest that 1 in 4 girls in America, and that's not black or white, that's just period. 1 in 4 females is molested before the age of 18, and 1 in 6 males. My estimation in the black community, through my research and talking to people and studying this for many decades, well, not many decades, but over a decade now, I would say that it's more like between half and 75% of black women, I would say probably 60%, 6 out of 10, experience some form of sexual molestation or abuse before age of 18. Probably it could be easily be 75%, but between 60 and 75% is what I say. That's if I had to go with a number, maybe I'd say 65%. So it happens to more black women in this country than it doesn't happen to. That'd be one. Two, for males, I would say at this point is 50%.
Wow.
It may be more, but I would say a solid 50% easy. Because it's just so prevalent, and unfortunately, well, I don't know if it's unfortunate, all of it's unfortunate, but pedophiles molest young males for whatever. Males who molest males molest at a higher frequency than any other form of molester. So, and there are any number of reasons why that is, but at the end of the day, so once it starts becoming prevalent, it becomes much more prevalent because hardly a male can get away, because the males that do this is all they do all day long with their lives. They molest little boys. That's all they do with their life. So, getting to your, what was your next question? Because you had that those are kind of the statistics, but you had asked me another very prudent question.
The other question was just because I think everybody understands if a boy is molested by a man, that's going to have some serious impact on them. But a lot of times we think that if it's done by a woman, it was going to happen anyway. He was going to sleep with a woman anyway, so he just got an early start. We don't really think it's going to have that impact on them. So when these brothers come to you and say, I was molested by an older woman and it kind of messed me up, what is the impact of that?
Okay. And there's some different ones, depending on how the ages are, different things. But here's some of the general case scenarios. And this is for a male who's molested by a woman, or if he's just in an ultra-dominant female household, or if he has both. Ultra-dominant. I'm not talking about just a real strong mother. I mean an ultra-dominant female household that tries to kill any semblance of manhood in them. And a lot of times it's mixed with sexual abuse. When a young boy, particularly the younger it is sexually abused by a female, many times he can be so viciously grossed out by the female anatomy, and it can crush his masculine development so much. Some of these brothers end up going into the homosexuality. But from what I have seen, that usually only happens when the male was in not only sexually abused by a female, but also when it was severely abusive, if you understand what I'm saying. So that just the sexual abuse doesn't tend, when it's a female on a boy, to turn him towards homosexuality. But if he's in a household, the women are total control. He can't do anything. He's totally female dominated, and there's some female sexual abuse. I've seen these brothers go into the homosexual lifestyle, or death style, I should say. Generally, what happens is the boys become very promiscuous. They become extremely sexually exploratory at very young ages. So if it happens to a young male, 10, 7, they start having sex shortly thereafter just with people of their own age. They can start doing what that person does to them, and that happens a lot, where this older female does something with him sexually, so when he gets around girls his age or younger than him, he introduces it to them. Now, I have not necessarily seen that they'll force it on females, but just that they're aware of this stuff, and they'll find a female they think would want to try it, and so they become very, very, very heavily involved in sexual relationships with women. I find that these brothers tend to have lots of different female relationships, but not a lot of strong ones. Meaning, it becomes difficult, many of them, to bond with a woman because as opposed to meeting a woman and liking a woman and learning the woman and then experiencing a sexual encounter, it happened reverse for these brothers. They experienced a sexual encounter, which then became what a woman is. And so as opposed to growing up and learning how to say, nah, I don't like her because she's like this, or I like her because she is, and developing a personality to have a bond with a woman as a man, they develop a sexual bond, and then that's how they begin to pick their women. So they, oh, she fine, she thinking she can be, she this, that, and the other. But the natural process, which would have started with figuring out how to bond mentally and emotionally with a woman, that part was missed. So a lot of times they can go 30, 40, 50 years old and have difficulty bonding with a woman, sharing secrets with a woman, talking with trusting women, talking to sisters. It becomes more of a sexual relationship where there's something missing, but that they don't know how to verbalize or vocalize because they don't even know that they were sexually abused by a woman when they were young. They thought that they got, they was experimenting early. They don't understand, but the basic impact is a very difficult time having a serious, a clean, good emotional bond with a woman, or sometimes they become heavily reliant on women. That's another thing, where something in that process makes them really want to be loved by women. This woman did this thing to them, and they were probably didn't say anything because they were looking for love, and that's what they consider love. So these men tend to get with these women, and they have this need now for a woman to love them, and so they kind of surrender their whole persons to these women and can be taken advantage of because they have a whole of that need. So these are just some of the things that I've seen. These are not things that these particular things, these are things that from the brothers I have met that have talked to me about in observation. These are not ones that I've read. Those particular questions you asked, that's been my observation.
Yeah, that's interesting. I remember, and I know we all feel a certain kind of way about Tyler Perry, but I believe I had seen an interview with him where he'd been sexually abused by a few people, but one of the women had on lingerie, and she had locked the door so he couldn't leave, and she actually inserted the key into herself and told him to come get the key out. And I guess after that happened, he was actually, molested. And he said that even to this day, seeing a woman in lingerie kind of does something to him mentally, which we can tell he has some sexual confusion going on. But even just in day-to-day life, just seeing somebody in lingerie, which for most people would be, just an everyday occurrence, it's a problem. So it's interesting how it can affect people. I think that we don't pay enough attention to that. We just expect people to grow up and get over it and keep living. But it It doesn't always happen that way. Um, just to let the callers know, we are going to be coming to the phone lines in just a few moments. The call-in number is 760-569-7676. Participation code 948656#. But before I go to the phone line, I do have to stir up the controversy because I've heard you call yourself a cleanser, and I've heard it through the grapevine that you think that the punishment for this kind of thing should be quite severe. What do you think the punishment should be for this, and why do you feel that way?
Anybody that sexually abuses a black child anywhere on the planet should face and is found guilty. I mean, if they actually did it, not as anyone who's accused. Anyone who actually molests a black child should face capital punishment, which means death. And the reason I say that, and this gets a little philosophical or spiritual, but it's just through observation and learning and growing. You know, there are different types of crimes that can occur, and there are different places that you can hurt a person. You can hurt a person intellectually. You can hurt a person. You can hurt a person's sense of security. You can hurt a person's trust. But this is a crime. The deepest part of the person, our ancestors call it the soul. And if we want to take it out of the spiritual realm and don't use the term soul, we can say your self-respect, which is the basis upon which every human being gets up in the morning and goes out to the world and represents themselves. How do they feel about themselves, their family, their people? You know, that is what we all, whether we know it or not, walk out on every day. And if you hate your people, then it's very difficult to impossible to truly have respect for yourself, because you don't exist outside the people that you're part of. So people who tend to have black self-hatred you can tell it in their behavior. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because if we talk about it from a self-respect point, there are a lot of things you can do to a person, but everything you do to them does not assault their self-respect or their soul, the deepest part of them. Because that's a place that you really have to do severe damage to tap into that place and really crack it. And the one crime that I see and have studied that skips past everything else and goes right for the soul and cracks it right in place. It cracks it where it's at. And even if a person is strong enough to walk, it's like a person with a fractured leg. Some brothers are strong enough to run out there and play football with a fractured leg when nobody else could do it. But the point is, the leg is still fractured. It fractures a piece of us as a person. And it's in the deepest place that you can do harm. And the one crime that does this is sexual abuse. There's something about the sexual development of a person. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because it's attached to what brings life, a man and woman, sexual interaction, but it's the most personal, deepest, most precious part of the human or the African or the person. There's something about that interaction, man with woman, sexually, that if you violate that, particularly in a child, you've done something to them that is permanently impacts them. It does not mean that they cannot recover and do great in life. It just means that you can never undo what was done to them. They can only be who the new person they're going to be and keep moving past it. Whereas a person can lose a mother and it has a great harm to them. But if they have a good woman to step in place, an aunt that raises them, they can still be a full person. But, you know, they always miss their mother. But it's different. A person can have a family member that was murdered in front of them. As horrible as it is, nightmares, and the much they'll never forget that, it's not the same. There's something about sexual violation of a person, and particularly in a child prior to their own sexual development, that damages a person in a way that can't be unreconstructed. So for that reason, and the fact that it's completely and absolutely goes against the very grain of African society, which says that the most precious thing in our society is our children because they represent the future of our race. Because these crimes attack the spirit, the soul, and the self-respect, and they're happening to our children, I say that if there's anything sacred to us as a race of people, we should make it clear that something that means something to us enough that we're not going to give you a second opportunity to do it. We don't want to hear your explanation or your excuse for doing it. If you do it, we're taking your life and you're out of here. And if somebody has a problem with that, we can put them up for trial as well. That's how I view it.
Now, are you also in favor of capital punishment for rape of adult women or just for child molestation?
I would say the woman and the family of a rapist should be able to determine what that rape punishment is. And whoever has the most severe consequences in the family, that's what it goes with. So for instance, if you got a family and this person rapes somebody, they just a nice family and they don't want to do anything, then the state will have to punish the person. But and I think that capital punishment for rape is reasonable. I think that's what should happen. I would say. But let's say you have a woman who's walking down the street and she's 25 years old and some guy snatched her up and raped her. And the family says, no, we don't want him to be murdered. We want him to be castrated. And the father says, I want to cut him off. I want to cut it. I believe that we should say, okay, well, you're not going to get killed. You're not getting capital punishment, but you are going to have your penis and testicles cut off. And the father right here is going to do it. And we tie him to a daggone pole, and the father gets the right to do that to avenge the crime that was committed against his daughter.
So what do you think that the age limit should be to separate the child molestation, which would be automatic capital punishment, from like an adult rape situation? Where are we going to draw the line between child and adult?
I would say we can use the standard of what we have in this country. The standard in this country is 18 as an adult.
Okay. Now, when you talk about capital punishment, a lot of people think that's harsh. A lot of people believe that pedophiles can be cured if you hug them enough and you tell them, we love you and you're just a beautiful person and you can be healed and you are a victim, that everything will be all right and they will stop and there's no need to kill them. What do you think about that? Can we hug them to death and make them rehabilitated?
I mean, if somebody wants to rub a pedophile's tummy and give him some NyQuil and try to talk him out of being a pedophile, then, that's I'll be 100% honest. I'm just be 100% honest. I don't have it in my ability to comprehend, to understand how a person can see that someone has sexually abused a child and doesn't want them dead. So I don't want to be overly critical with people who think that way because, if in case there's something that I'm missing, I really don't understand the logic or the thinking. Matter of fact, to be 100% honest, I'm so offended that I look down on a person when they say it. So I've learned to try to be more mature and say, everybody don't necessarily think like you think, and you have to be open because this is a tough situation to tackle. But just to be 100% honest, I really don't understand how I can see a woman just being a woman, don't want to kill somebody. Women are kind of like nice and lovey-dovey stuff, but like I really don't understand a man who thinks that way. Like he can look at his daughter and somebody sexually molests his daughter and he wants to do anything but kill him. I don't understand it. I really don't even want to understand it. It's so far beyond my comprehension that I just assume, say, well, that's their opinion. I give them the right to their opinion, but it would not be in any society that I would live in. I wouldn't even debate it. I wouldn't debate it. It would be non-negotiable position. If you're going to live in a society where I have power, if you molest a child, you're going to die. I don't care what your opinion is. We're not even going to have any. If you're a pedophile, we're not going to have any therapy. The therapy is death. The therapy is blowing your brains out. That's the only therapy put you in the ditch. We're not wasting any resources. Once a person has gotten to the point where they want to molest a child, I'm not wasting time, resources, energy trying to save somebody that has committed a crime that I don't want them to be saved for. We got enough time to try to help the victim and spend time trying to heal them. I'm not trying to heal no perpetrator of a crime like that. I don't understand it, and I just don't agree with it.
Well, and I have another question too, for the people who do feel differently than you. Everything that I've seen has shown me that there's really no rehabilitation for these people. I even saw a documentary once where somebody that had been castrated said he still had the urge. So even though he couldn't do anything as far as his genitalia, he still has hands and all other parts of his body that could be used because he's still having these impulses even though he was castrated. Have you ever seen any information, because you've dealt with this more than I have, you've researched it and all this other stuff, to make you believe that a pedophile ever could be rehabilitated?
And let me be clear what I'm saying, because I don't want people to be confused. The first, just the definitive answer is all of the information, all of the research has been done, clearly demonstrates beyond a reasonable shadow of a doubt that to this point that there is no found successful cure for pedophilia. Now let me just be so the answer to that is no, there's not a cure that anywhere on this planet that has been found except death. Now let me make a clarification. You have situations in really sick environments like, let's say, the black neighborhood in the inner city, where people all strung out on crack, and you got gangs or you just got groups of people. And let's say you got a guy like Nathan McCall, who talked about how they did what they call ran a train on a little 13-year-old girl. I forget how old she was, but anyway, these group of guys all around, one of them lures a little girl into, and then they all rape her. Now, I'm not justifying it at all whatsoever. What I am saying, if you got a guy that is in there and does that, and because of the pressure of everybody else doing it, and it's like, man, I can't say no, so he does it, but he does not take that for the rest of his life and become that way. He did something because he was in the environment where it was done. I'm not classifying him as the same as what we classify as a pedophile, which is somebody who actively went out and pursued a child to sexually violate. Again, I'm not justifying that behavior whatsoever. I'm just saying there might be a brother who has done something like that and now looks back on it and say, man, I didn't know what I was doing. I never thought about it. It was just kind of what was going on in the hood. Yeah, but that person not necessarily a pedophile. They're a person who committed a horrendous act. And again, if the parent found out what they did, they had the right to do whatever they want to do. But that's not a person with the inclination to do this per se. It could be, it could not be. I'm talking about the individual that goes around and seeks a child for sexual exploitation. That individual is dealing with, in the way we know that it's not able to be rehabilitated. And I'm getting a little depth of discussion here when I say this, but I think it's worth mentioning. In doing the research, it became very clear to me after, like I say, many thousands of hours studying, pedophilia is not a generic classification of behavior that exists among all races of the planet. That is not the essence of it. Pedophilia is, by historic analysis, pedophilia is a predisposition of the white race. It is a instinct to sexually ravage and destroy the entity that you have power over, to brutalize and to do damage and to cause misery, to take sexual and physical and spiritual and emotional advantage of a being that does not have the power to protect themselves. It is something that gives the European spirit joy to disrupt and dismantle other things that are living. It's part of their death culture system. So what happens is when Europeans go around the world and do this to people, then other human beings and other races begin to adapt, even if they're not doing it consciously. Just because it happened to them so much, they're doing what they've been taught, doing it by rote or doing it by example, doing it by training. They begin to emulate the misbehavior that happened to them by the European, and then they begin to become spiritually, mentally, socially, psychologically Europeans. it's not pedophilia. Is not really about sexuality. It's more about European nature. It's more about the predisposition of the devil or the white race or the European or the Caucasoid or the Ashkenazim, whatever you want to call them. This is their predisposition towards life. And as you study their behavior, it extends beyond just sexuality, even beyond sexuality with human beings. It extends to sexuality with animals. But it then even extends beyond sexuality because they will take a black man and for their delight, they will hang him from a tree and cut his penis off. Well, they didn't actually have sex with him, but that same enjoyment of preventing this person from having a business and taking care of their family and exploiting and damaging and destroying and taking and violating something and putting it for display, that same feeling they get with is what they get. Pedophile behavior is part of the predisposition and the psychological stuff of Europe. That's what we're really dealing with. So I'm saying that to say, when your question is, can you rehabilitate that? That would go to what would be, I'm taking a practical, analytical analysis, and I would say you could compare it to what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught in the lessons when he said, can you reform devil? He said, no, devil cannot be reformed. Well, in an analytical sense, what we would be talking about is, can the white race, the predisposition of the white inclination for destruction, can that appetite be quelled without the destruction of the planet Earth? And the answer is no. This is who and what the white race is. That cannot be tested. Because pedophilia is in the center of the disposition, then that means pedophilia cannot be cured from the white race because it's the predisposition of what they are. The white race cannot be changed. So then anyone who adopts the worst aspect of European misbehavior and internalizes that essentially becomes a European and black skin. Neither can be changed or rehabilitated.
Yes, sir. Well, think you made your point. Do you mind if we go to the phone lines, take a few calls?
No, I would love to do that.
Sounds good. All right. 8769, you're live.
Hey, how you doing? How y'all doing? Peace. My name is Tad. I called in a couple of weeks ago. Brother Irritated Genie, I want to thank you so much for all the information, all the work that you do in educating our community. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. With my job, we had a LBGT training. Now they do the QQ on it. And of course, you had some people a little resistant and apprehensive to hold the position of just being heterosexual, because I feel that there's an attack on heterosexuality now. You know what I'm saying? There's a heterophobia going on. But what I found was so crazy was through the studying and through your lectures and information, I was able to combat positions that tried to support homosexuality and pedophilia, particularly in terms of talking about one of the questions that was raised was sexuality, biological or cultural. My position is that it's both. Of course, biologically, because we're all born with sexual reproductive organs. However, it's cultural in European culture because of who their gods were. And then, I went into the story about Zeus and Ganymede, which kind of, pretty much had people a little quiet. And then I went into Plato and how when a man and a woman can have a relationship without it being sexual, that was platonic, because Plato was a flamboyant homosexual. A lot of people didn't know that stuff, But I definitely have to thank you for the information because, there's definitely an attack on black manhood, and our children aren't safe, because I feel I have children. But if my little daughter wants to have a sleepover, I wouldn't allow boys to sleep over. Why? Because there's a chance that there'll be a little hanky-panky going on. But now, this day and age, with everybody giving the green light to homosexuality, now my daughter can't have her little female friends spend the night. Because though I raised my daughter right, who's to say that this child is not being exposed to that kind of lifestyle? You know what I'm saying? And bring it into my home and try to introduce my child with it, And that's the problem that we're having because everybody's giving it the green light, which is kind of combating with the family values that we're trying to instill in our African children. You know what I mean? about having a solid family structure, about having a cohesive family structure. But with it in the media, with it in the music, with it in the schools, with everybody telling my children that this is all right, it's okay to explore your sexuality. No, it is not okay. And then, of course, we went into NAMBLA, and that pretty much shut everything down, with them being organized, recognized pedophiles, homosexual pedophiles. I thought that was real crazy. But again, I just got to thank you for all the information you putting out there, and definitely keep up the work, man. And I wanted to say one more thing. All right? Me and my family, we have a website called Forbes DVD, and I know you hate bootlegging. We didn't bootleg it. However, we did use one of your videos from YouTube, and we posted it on the site. And just earlier today, and it was at least about 1,800 when I checked a couple of hours ago. And we just posted a couple of hours, so we definitely trying to pass your message out there about what's really happening, because I think our people really do need to be awakened, to the what's the word I'm looking for? Just to the subtle assault, that's being waged against us, And I just want to thank you, brother. You stay up, all right?
Yes, sir, well, brother. Stay on with me because I got a couple things I got to say to you.
Oh, I'm here.
One, I just gotta say, brother, I can't really put it into words how good it makes me feel that there are brothers and sisters out there who get this message and don't just sit on it and keep it for their family, but you fighting.
We have to.
Brother, keep that fight up. Don't lose your job and don't put yourself in jeopardy. But we gotta have soldiers like you out there that take this thing and run with it, and if you take it to the whole nother level, whatever you have to do to continue this work and take it to who needs it where you are, brother, we any way we can help you, brother. I just want you to know it really means a lot because it's people like you that's going to make the difference. If not, I can sit here and do the little things that we do, but if a brother like you don't take it and then implement it in his family, and then when he gets the opportunity, start sharing that information and going to battle. Cause that's what you was doing there. You was going to battle. If brother ain't going to war, then we going to lose. So, brother, I appreciate you for that. And the second thing, we got on the War on the Horizon website, we have, if you go under the feminization tab, we have the YouTube clips from all 4 effeminizations and Predators in Our Midst. And it's the full lectures.
Can I say something?
Yes, sir.
I watched every last one.
Let me say this. I'll let you say. You can take any of those ones that's up there, the full lectures, put them on your website, brother. Spread the word. We will be happy for you to do that because we love and appreciate what you're doing. So take all 5 of them or whatever you want to do and put the word out there. Go ahead, my brother.
Yeah. And I have a youth group that I work with too. Called Party. Parents actively reclaiming their youth because we do have to take our children back from this death culture. And I showed them the video of mental genocide about black businesses, and let me tell you, they love that. They love that. The one where you were showing the clips with Amos Wilson speaking in the background, they went out and came back with more friends the following week and said, show them that clip. They really love that, man. And these are young girls and boys, teenagers. I'm talking about 15, 16, and 17.
Wow.
So, they're receptive to the information, and they want it. There's just very few places for them to turn to and get this. You know what I mean? Because our children know something about this ain't right. They know them girls and boys in the hallway in their school kissing ain't right. But too many of the wrong people are co-signing that. So definitely, I'm with you, man. We gonna fight this to the bitter end, to the last bullet, man.
Yes, sir.
We definitely gonna fight this one.
And just so you know, anything that we put up when we put the full video up,
yeah,
you got full rights and access to do whatever you need to do with it on any level. Do what you got to do, brother. Get the word out. We love you. We appreciate you, brother. We see you on the battlefield.
I love y'all too. Y'all stay up.
Yes, sir.
Peace.
All right. Thank you for calling in. And anybody else that wants to call in, again, the number is 760-569-7676. Participation code 948656#. Now, I do want to add, because the subject of sleepovers came up, for parents to be very careful about that, because you may have your daughter sleeping over somebody else's house, and it's a female friend, but always beware that those female friends may have a brother, may have a father, may have somebody else staying with them, and like the caller said, some of the girls could be lesbian. So be very, very careful with those sleepovers. And I always say, women, be careful with those overnight retreats too, because you might be getting more than what you bargained for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Next caller, 5469. You're live. 5469.
Hello.
Peace. How are you?
Hello. Hi, how you making out? How you doing, Brother Genie? Irritated Genie?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself, brother?
I'm okay, too. I'm a little irritated, too. Hey, you guys have a good show. I don't say much. Real interesting, helpful thing. I just, love what you're doing. I'm always, any way I can help is support you. Just let me know.
We appreciate that, brother, definitely. And the easiest thing, if you got access to the internet, if you can just tell black people to go check it out. Tell them to check out the radio program, the website, the YouTubes, because the more of our people that get the information, hopefully that'll wake more people up and that gets more people on the right team. So that's what we really appreciate.
I do try to do that too, but it's certain, I don't know what it is, man. I talk to people about it, try to let them listen to me, listen to it sometimes. They just tune out. It's like it's a problem. I said, man, don't you, we all got the same complaints and feel the same type of way, but when I don't know, it's just like they talking about the Christian thing. It really frustrates me. Like I said, it irritates me too. But I feel something, it's like you're doing the right thing. Real powerful, good information, real helpful for me. And I do be trying to get the word out.
We appreciate that, brother.
All right. Anything else, brother?
Now, it was one thing, real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I got 3 daughters, and I had a problem with this too coming up. They used to have sleepovers, and I used to go, when I come home from work, I asked where my daughter's at, the mom would say they over at sleepovers. I had a problem with that. I would go pick them up, bring them back home. The mother would argue with me, take them back over there, and I would let her know. Sometimes, it was kind of crazy. The people told me I couldn't come to the house. I said, if I can't come in there, my daughters can't come in there. Be a lot of, a bad environment. I just always had a problem with that. I was looking out for her safety, but it's still, it's like some type of battle with the woman too, with the female. So I'm good with that too. I got 1 son, 3 daughters. And but when I come up, we never had that. We always stayed home every night. Make sure everything was, Mom and Dad, when my pop was there, make sure everything was all right. But I try to break it down to the girls I was dealing with, but they act like they had a problem with it. They would argue with me, and by me being, a driver on the road, I go up, call back home with my daughter. She took them back over there. That was just a big problem for me, yeah. And I try to explain to her. I took her there one day. You could see the people sitting on the steps, smoking, drinking. The lights is off. I just go up in there and get my daughters out. And the mom, that's like, she just had a problem with that. But I guess, as they got older, now they see what I'm saying. They got daughters now, Now they understand it. It was kind of hard to explain it to them and break it down then. But it was all for their safety, for their own good. But things do happen. I don't trust nobody. I ain't feel right if I'm home, they're not home, I can't speak.
And let me say this, and I know that was back then, but this just an answer for somebody who many brothers are dealing with the same problem with their women, who basically are fighting them on everything. No matter what they're trying to do that's right for the young people, to a large degree, and it's not 100%, but to a large degree, our women have bought into lawlessness to just let anything happen. Just pretty much a European kind of construct of life with no discipline and no law. My suggestion, no matter how you do it, that predators in our midst. One thing that I have been told and have seen throughout time, that particular DVD, because many of the other ones we focus on, I'm crack of this, crack of that, crack of this. We try to make sure with this particular one, because it was so important, that we did it in such a way that anybody that's watching it, even if it's something that wouldn't normally be interesting to them, it's intriguing and interesting. They'll watch the whole thing, because then after they watch it, they will be able to understand, even if they don't totally buy into the black-white piece, they will understand why you don't want your daughters in an environment where they're not being watched after, even if it's just statistics and the other things that the video provides them. So I would say, if you got a woman and you can get the sister to watch the predators in our midst, I think for many of them, that will help you get them on your side, at least with that part, the differences you have with them.
Yeah, man, I'm trying to get that. I'm going to get it. I'm going to let my daughters watch it. They got little girls now. They all in the 20s now.
It's actually free online. If you go to waronthehorizon.com, if you go to the tab, it says Effeminization.
What is it, Effeminization?
Yes, sir. It says Effeminization, the tab. When you go there, go to the very bottom, the last video. It's called Predators in Our Midst. It's the whole entire video. You can play it for free any given time, and they can watch it for free.
Okay. I was on there last week. I seen that mention over in Dover, Delaware, where the guy was out on the DVD out there in Dover, Delaware.
Yes, sir.
Where the guy was explaining the situation. I looked at that a couple weeks ago.
Yes,
I
sir.
got the book too. I met you down at Philadelphia with Ronald Sousa, like the Bank Hall on Jefferson. That was years ago. I got your book. You signed it for me.
Yes, sir.
I thought you remembered me. Yeah, that was a few years back, but.
All right, brother. Well, we definitely appreciate the support and glad you're hanging in there, brother. And hang in there, take care of them young people, and keep doing what you're doing, soldier.
All right. Thank you for calling in. And I'm going right back to the phone line in a minute, but that just takes me back to, and not saying it's like this with this situation, but it just reminded me of mothers. And I found this especially with mothers who have been the victim of sexual abuse. They do not shield, a lot of them do not shield their daughters from the same thing. A lot of them will put their daughters in the exact same position. Sometimes if it was with a family member, they'll leave them with that same family member if it was a grandfather or something like that. But it's like we don't learn if it happens to us to protect our children from it. We'll put them right back in that situation, almost like it's a rites of passage that they need to go through. It's a very sick thing. Have you seen that a lot in your work?
Oh, God, that's really the formula. An uncle or a house that or maybe a house with an uncle that molested the child. The woman grows up and takes her daughter and leaves them at the house unattended with that same uncle over there, and that uncle molests them. So now they done molested the mother and the daughter, and the mother knew that he was a molester because he molested him. And again, I'm not giving anybody any excuses, but I'm gonna go back to something I said earlier. I think it's really relevant here. We never really consider this, because what happens is those of us that know it's wrong and know how wrong it is, it's like to us, it's common sense. It's like it's not even a question. So that the person that takes their child back there is committing a crime that's almost unthinkable. Where we want to go out there and shoot the pedophile and shoot them too. And I'm not saying that I want anybody to change how you feel. You should feel how you feel. I am saying this though. And I really want people to consider this, because I think it's extremely important for our consideration. There is no general consensus among black people. You're not going to get it from crackers. So I'm not talking about a national consensus. I'm talking about a black national consensus of what pedophilia is, how it occurs, who does it, and what to do with the perpetrators of the crime. So in addition to that, there's no standard of what you do when you know someone in the family was a pedophile and they're still around. The responsibility that a family member has of not taking their children around someone, never done that. The responsibility you have as a member of the family to tell someone if someone has molested someone, if it was you or anybody else, you're responsible to tell people. Because right now, honestly, half the people would say, well, I thought I shouldn't say nothing because my uncle, and if I snitched on him, then, you know, if a brother find out his uncle messed with his niece, he might not say nothing because he don't want his uncle to get in trouble. He don't want to snitch. Well, he might actually be applying a law in this community, which is no snitching, not realizing that in this particular instance, it's not the no snitching law that applies. It's the black pedophile law, where we don't have a standardized pedophile law, a set of standard procedures to determine if it occurred, if the person was guilty, and then how we're going to punish them. We don't have these things in order, so that I'm not saying how a person should respond. What I am saying is we don't have standardized rules of engagement to deal with this, and we need them.
Okay. And 9803, I'm coming right at you. You're up next. But I do want to pursue this a little bit because it's important. A lot of children, we saw this on the last program, a lot of children don't say anything, even into adulthood, and they assume it only happened to me. They don't assume that maybe it happened to their sister or their cousin or their best friend sometimes is lured into it. They keep it to themselves because they feel like this only happened to me and it's better for me to just keep my mouth closed for either the good of the family or just a whole bunch of different reasons they do that. And I think that more children would come forward if they realized that most perpetrators do not just do this to one child. It's repeated. And I'm kind of curious because I know there's a difference sometimes between black and white. Do black pedophiles repeat the action as much as whites? Because I've heard, white pedophiles can do it hundreds and hundreds of times before they're caught. Is it the same rate with black molesters, or is it just, within a small group of people?
I would say based on, I've never seen a study that does that particular thing, but I would say based on the research I've done, it's the same. If there's any difference, it would be who the pedophile goes after and the cultural difference in that community. So, for instance, if the white pedophile is targeting young females that's 13, then a black pedophile that's targeting a female that's 13, the white pedophile may say they primarily going after white females. They play some Led Zeppelin or some Guns N' Roses or whatever the children might like at that time or whatever they listen to now. The black pedophile may get a Nicki Minaj CD and go after black girls that are 13 and use a similar procedure based on what that community is like. But at the end of the day, their frequency and their desire to exploit children tends to be the same as far as I know.
So would you think that it would be almost a responsibility of adult women who have gone through this, even if they have no reason to believe that this person has offended, sometimes, like we said, it may be children or something like that, and it may have happened and you think, oh, well, they're not doing it anymore. Do you think that it should be a responsibility to go on and out that person anyway, even if it's been a long time ago? Because a lot of people just are not willing to do that.
I'm being 100% honest. This one is on black men. When black men make the decision to start enforcing it, then I would say not only is it for the black woman or the black man who's an adult, the responsibility for them to tell somebody who did something when they were young, particularly for the reason of finding out if anybody in the family is experiencing this, because we got to weed these individuals out of our community because they can molest up to 300 to 400 children in their lifetime. That's the part that really gets us. It's not 1 or 2 or 10 or 15. They're in the hundreds usually. Yes, but it's of no benefit in most circumstances for black women or black men or anybody to say anything when black men are going to blame the person who was the victim. Okay. When black men organize and start dealing adequately with the sexual abusers of our children, it will be at that time that I would say that the push for massive education and the push to make people feel guilty, not about being sexually abused, but to feel guilty if they don't tell people that someone sexually abused them, because not because of what they're doing for themselves, but because of the potential hundreds of other children whose sexual sanity they could be saving. And then we can flush these fools out, flush them down the toilet, and we can do something to clean up our community.
All right. 9803, you're live.
Respect to y'all.
Peace, how you doing?
How you doing, brother?
I'm growing. Sister, can I get your name? Because I came in onto the conversation late, and I want to give respect.
Oh, yes, sir. Lady Shabazz.
Lady Shabazz. Respect.
Yes, sir.
And irritated Genie, as always, thanks for your striving that you do, bro.
Hey, appreciate you, brother.
I want to let you know, in Dallas, we got your package, and we've been distributing it out to the brothers and sisters out here, you know what I'm saying, trying to get critical conversation going and a better understanding the value, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, bro. As far as the cleansing aspect of the call, I am totally down with that, because anyone who preys upon the fam is to be removed. There is no other questions about it. Anyone who preys upon the fam is to be removed. That's the rule. It's not a want. It's not a guess. It's not a no. That's what we have to do. That's what we're supposed to do. And those of us who get as angry as we get, it's for a reason. It's for a reason, you know.
Do you brothers feel the same way about capital punishment if the offender is a woman?
Exactly. I mean, the values must be upheld. The very first thing they did was break apart our family, and if ain't nobody gonna maintain just basic family values, what else is there? We don't have anything to build upon. So, be a female, if she, overstepping the boundaries, she overstepped the boundaries. I mean, it's not my call. All I'm doing is understanding what is supposed to be done, you know? I took up the charge. I said, look, give me the eyesight, show me the have-nots, show me the power, show me that which is obstructing them. All right, let's combat that.
Yes, sir. And
I'm gonna have to agree with the brother, because I'll be honest with you. I'm far less harsh on black women than I am black men, but I'm gonna be honest. Antoine Fisher did one thing, but for real, the King Shamir show where he interviewed that pedophile.
I listened to that.
After I heard that, that's when I realized, she's dead already.
Yes.
You're not killing nothing. You're really preserving the race. I mean, she's dead, man. A female who gets so sick that they would sexually abuse a child. I don't have any. I don't like the idea of hurting a black woman, but she's no longer a black woman. She's dead anyway. I would say the same penalty for male or female if they molested children. Yeah, I would say same.
Yes, sir. And that's exactly why I asked that question, because I noticed after that show, people were a little soft on that to me. And I know it's because she was a woman. A lot of times they'll say, yeah, we can, eliminate the pedophiles. But if that pedophile is a young lady, sometimes people feel a certain kind of way.
That's all American. That's the same thing with, women and children first and everything. They feel, all right, well, a woman's in a position of something weaker at that ass point. It's like, wait a minute. I mean, get your damn values correct. You know what I'm saying? Now she had an aspect of weaker because it's a woman, but they've been teaching the sickness all across the board. Our people are I mean, look, this system is utilized because it works, and somehow it's getting even more effective, and that's the scary part, because it now seems like it's on automatic degenerate, and it just keeps declining.
That's true. One thing that has bothered me lately is I've seen, I don't know anybody that will admit to it, but it looks very suspect to me. A lot of single mothers today who will say, I'm going out to eat with my man, or I'm sitting here watching TV with my man, or my man cooked me breakfast in bed, and come to find out their man is their little son. To me, that just doesn't sit right. I have heard of men being abused by their mothers, and with some of the things that I'm hearing right now, it seems like that may be becoming a trend in the community, because to call your son your man, not just the man of the house, but your man, is just going down a real slippery slope for me.
Well, I can tell you, and this was really hard. You know, when you do this work, you kind of get to a place where you're comfortable and you want to stay in your zone and fight the battle where it is. And it just always hurts for the battle to escalate on the other end. Not you escalating against the enemy, but the enemy escalation of the war against your people. I was talking to a brother. I was playing ball, talking to him. He was talking about bringing me out to his program to speak to the young people. And I was talking to him, and he said, yeah. I said, I bet you got some young people in your program that's been sexually abused. And he said, yeah, he said 4 of my 16 boys have been sexually abused. So I said, yeah, I bet you it was their uncles, wasn't it? Because I was so confident that I had done so, I was so knowledgeable about what was going on. I pretty much can predict. I'm pretty good with that, what's going on. And it blew me away. He said, no, man. He said, it's their moms. I said, what? He said, yeah. He said, I got 16 boys. And 4 of them is their moms and aunties and aunts that are molesting them. I said, wait, what do you mean, molesting them? He said, well, they getting these boys to give them oral sex. They have sex with their sons, and their sons are really messed up by this because this is what their mothers were doing with them.
What the hell is this? I mean, what?
And this ain't this year. This was back in 2006 or 7, maybe 2008.
You know what? That was a brother when I was in the service. He kind of bragged about his mom. He like, I used to sleep with my mom's friends. You know what I'm saying? And there was a elder cat. And he pointed out. He's like, man, his mama was pimping them. Pimping him. I mean, he wasn't forced, but I mean, he was young and he was 11 growing up. And I guess he felt that, hey. I'm the big man now, you know what I'm saying? But, I mean, the way the elder cat pointed out, he's like, yeah, his mom was pimping him. And I just, see, stuff like that I can't fathom. I really can't. I mean, it was, if we would have heard something like this back in the 80s, it would have been like, you know what, that's strictly white people stuff. We wouldn't have been surprised at them, it's like, yeah, that's white people, Pepperwood. But our people, really? I mean, what's the value that they getting out of that? I mean, are they specifically not choosing we brothers? I mean, they let it go for their son. I mean, this really. I mean,
and let me say something to what the brother's saying here. And I'm not just trying to say this just to tell the worst case stories, but this is real because it goes back to what the sister was talking about before. When I was in Senegal, it was my first trip to the African continent, and I was talking to these brothers, and it was a brother that was there with his son, and the brother had to be in his 50s, maybe early 60s, and the son was in his 20s. And the son was kind of weird and everything, but I just thought he was this weird dude. But anyway, long story short, I remember when we were leaving, the day we was about to leave to go to the airport, and I was like, yeah, man, but see, we were just having a good conversation because we had gone to Gorée Island, the dungeon. We were talking about slavery, and I said, yeah, but see how people don't understand the story, we don't ever talk about the story, and that's why our children don't understand it. So they was like, well, teach, brother, teach. So I said, yeah, see, they don't talk about when they put us on these slave ships, how they rape our women. But they would rape the men, too. They would rape our sons, and they would pour this homosexuality on us. And I'll never forget, when I said that, they cut me off and was like, ah, and they kept like, it was like what I was saying was ridiculous. But because I had respect for the older brother, I didn't think much of it, right?
Right.
I just thought maybe I wasn't really bringing it. I just didn't understand, so I never thought about it twice. Years later, when I was at when we had the fight at the church over the homosexual thing, Willie Wilson had the thing at his church. When it was all packed with homosexuals, because he was saying that we should accept homosexuality in the nationalist community. I look back when we were in there fighting against this homosexualization of the black community, and I saw him and his son hugged up. And I said, damn, they was fags. Him and his son with each other. I said, no wonder they responded like that when I said that thing, because they be involved in this. And I was like, man, this thing is much deeper than I thought. You know what I mean?
What is it? What is in the mind? What is in the mind of our people? I mean, they can't answer nothing critical about anything that is not attached to some whiteness. Everything has their fingerprint on it. Everything. You know what I'm saying? Everything is you ask somebody, some faggot to say something, and I'm like, look, man, just look at your navel, all right? When you taught as a child to respect your navel, would you be told your navel? Ain't gotta do your navel attached to your mother. You know what I'm saying? We was them children who at the drop of a dime, we fight for mama. You know what I'm saying? that meant something. We was always outside trying to build and everything. You know what I'm saying? And them motherfuckers want to say that, okay, you're now the little sisters.
Oh, and let me
I'm supposed to accept that.
Man, let me just ask. We don't have a policy against cursing, but last time we had the program, a lot of people listened with their children.
I apologize.
I understand. That really wasn't a rule, but I didn't realize we got a lot of people saying, man, I see that with my son. They only 4,
Oh, okay. All respect, dude. Just, sound like my pastor's Tulsa. But yeah, it's you present yourself as original. I don't really get in the whole straight gay thing, because they're still dealing with a designation of a Peckerwood. I'm original. I'm original man, living by original man principles. Then they start asking you where you go to school. Original. There's nothing in your system applies to me or my family or our principles or anything. If anything, this is alien. This is alienation to you. Get that understanding with it, and then it's like it shuts them up. It shows them that they're living in illusion, and they can't say nothing. Show me some truth that you didn't learn from no damn TV. You know what I'm saying? And we hear brothers and sisters like y'all, and they don't tell the real, true servants of the people who are willing to go that route and sign up for duty at the drop of a dime. They don't tell us that these people out here, they call us crazy for talking about killing them. They talk us crazy. They talk us crazy. Talk about killing. Period. Unless you're talking about somebody black. If you're a black killer, you gotta be talking. Excuse my French, killing the N-word. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, wait a minute, no. There are valid reasons into which we should remove all predators from our community. Valid reasons for us just to rebuild. We gotta fight everything that we talking about. We need the black this and the black this and the black this. That is a reconstruction for a reason, for a purpose. But they don't want to see that. Oh, you're not killing for righteousness. What you killing for? You're killing because you're angry. oh, my anger is just so superficial. You know, I mean, it's disrespectful to the ancestors because we spend our lives trying to get back to them because we know that's our start, and with that start, we can create a new beginning for us.
Yes.
And they tell us don't look there.
Yes, sir.
They tell us, you know,
Well,
they tell us not to look there, to look at this system. And now you got the mothers humping the sons. I mean, you couldn't have told me in 1993 that this would have been happening 20 years from now, ain't it? Man, come on. I'd have lost a bet.
yes.
Big time.
Yes, sir. Well, we definitely thank you for your call and all your information. I feel the exact same way. We have just a couple more calls to take, so we have to move on. But please call back. This program is on every other Tuesday. And, of course, we have Irritated Genie Show Monday, 7 to 9. So please call back because you have a lot of information, and we love the spirit you're coming in.
Thank you for serving, and power to the people.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Peace. It's a strong caller right there. Hopefully he'll continue to call in.
Always.
All right, my brother, you are live.
Black Power, Black Power.
Black Power.
How you doing, brother Irritated Genie?
Hey, man, 1-to-1, brother. How about you?
Yeah, on the 1-2, same way, you know, keeping up with the heartbeat of life, gang, keeping up with the heartbeat of life. I just want to say big thanks, you know what I mean? It's through you that I actually found out about the whole conspiracy, or the agenda, rather, of this whole thing, you know, access to little boys and little girls. Yeah, I just want to say give thanks. And listening to the program, you know, it just kind of brought me into a thought that I never even really thought about. Because when somebody gets robbed, they don't go out and turn robbing people. When somebody gets hurt or jumped, they don't go out jumping people. When somebody gets shot, they don't turn around to go out randomly shooting people. And it made me think, why is it when somebody gets sexually abused, they end up growing up abusing the person, not putting themselves in that same position that child is in, you know? That was just a thought that was in my mind, you know, that I was just kind of thinking about. But,
wait a minute. Did you come up with an answer? Because that's absolutely, like, critical thinking. I'd love to hear your answer, or have you not gotten an answer for that yet?
No, that was just the question I had. Because, I mean, you know, generally, you try to avoid situations like that. And if you're a victim of something, you try to help other people who are victimized by what you're victimized by. So, why is it that the people who are sexually abusing children statistically seem to end up sexually abusing children themselves? Because, you know, in the same person's mind, when you look at a child, you know, it's just a loving, affection, and protective type feeling that comes over you towards the child. You know, and I mean, it just kind of like really psyched me out, you know, just hearing, you know, the other callers and the lady Shabaz's statement. And that just kind of kicked into my mind. You know, you don't victimize people who are victimized just how you were victimized. I don't know. If somebody has the answer out there, I'd love to find an answer for that myself, too.
I'm going to say this. I don't have the absolute answer for that question, but believe me, between now and next year, I'm going to be able to, first, thank you for that. That's such critical insight. It's one of the best questions on this topic that I probably have ever heard. One thing I can say, part of the rationale, at least, is the fact, like we said, the one crime that you can commit against a person that goes directly past every other nuance of that person's life and existence and hits them right in their soul, their self-respect, the base foundational spiritual thing that exists in a person, the deepest part of them, is this sexual abuse. And so something about the fact that it hits you in the deepest part of you and corrupts you at that point or damages you there has to do with why, as opposed to generically being almost everybody who it happens to should be against it, why it triggers something and can produce that same result again, because it's hitting you in a place that's so deep that if you don't turn the right direction, you can turn the very, very wrong direction. That's a brilliant analysis. Just the question in and of itself is opening up a whole new paradigm of discussion as it relates to this topic that I think can help a lot of people understand how serious this crime is that we're dealing with.
Yeah, you don't victimize. I mean, you don't victimize people how you victimize. You know, if you rob, you don't go out robbing people. If you get hurt or something, you don't go out and start doing it. And it's like, why is that? Based on the information that I got from you in particular, through On the Horizon, and the book also, I'm reading the book now, On the Horizon, which is a real good book. I suggest everybody should get that book and read it. And it's kind of like, what causes that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for calling in. I appreciate it.
Sure enough, sister. Lots of love.
Yes, sir.
Black Power.
Black Power. That's one of my favorite callers. He always brings something to the discussion every single time. Him and his brother both. They always have something constructive to bring.
That's true.
All right. Well, looks like we are winding down. Did you have any closing thoughts you wanted to share?
Well, one, I really wanted to thank you for sharing your story and for just continuing to stay on this topic because, of course, I'm always on the topic in terms of the fact I've been doing it for years, but honestly, it's a heavyweight topic, and even though I never admit to myself that it carries a lot of weight, what I do notice is that unless it comes up, I don't tend to talk about it. And a part of it is because even though it's never happened to me and I deal with it, we talk to people about it all the time, deep down inside, it's the thing that I hate most about the white race, and it's the thing that makes me the angriest for whatever reason, the fact that people would sexually brutalize a child. So it makes me the kind of anger and rage that I don't even like to really feel myself going there. So I kind of deal with it when I have to, just pretty much regularly, but not like what we're doing here. So that if you weren't continuing to stay on it and beat the drum, I think, at least for myself, I can lose some steam and focus on some other things because it's a hard topic to deal with. And quite frankly, as black men, I hope the brothers out there listening to me, we have not done what we're supposed to do to fix this problem. And the only way we're going to do it is for sisters like yourself to call us to task by continuously putting it in front of us and forcing us to deal with it so that we can truly do something to change it so that tomorrow we won't be waking up to the sounds of our daughters telling them they were sexually abused or our sons even. So I really appreciate the great work you're doing, sister.
Yes, sir, and I appreciate you too, and I thank you so much for coming on the program today. And I guess I will see you on the battlefield. I'll be calling into your show like I do every week.
All right. That sounds like a winner.
Yes, sir.
All right.
All right. Peace.
Peace.
And for everybody listening, I'm sure that you already know that, but we may have some new people who don't. Brother Irritated Genie has his programs Monday night from 7 to 9. They're always very enlightening. He's been giving everybody a run for his money. I don't remember last time he had a show that flopped. I don't know if I've ever heard one. He tried to have the best lineup or whatever. He could give us a little righteous competition. It's all good though. Very brilliant brother. Shows always very informative. Every now and then we get to hollering and screaming and getting angry, and other times we mellow, but it's always a good program to listen to. So that's Monday nights from 7 to 9. I want everybody to stay tuned tonight for the Cypher program. They come on right after me, so you can stay tuned for that as well. And I do just want to say that I wasn't sure how this was going to go when I first started doing this series of programs on child sexual abuse. After the first one, I knew that I was at least going to have part 2, but I'm thinking I will probably continue this in the new year, just hitting it from different aspects because we need to talk about it to see how common it is in our community, to see how it has affected us, and to see that this is a part of our culture. We don't want to accept that, but this has become a part of our culture. As I said, from the music we heard earlier, to the movies, to just our attitudes in general, this is what we have become. And we cannot effectively deal with the other aspects of warfare we need to deal with while we have 50% to 75% of our people who have to deal with this first before they can even deal with all of our other problems. It really is a hindrance, and we have to nip it in the bud. So we will be continuing this in the new year. My next program will be in 2 weeks. We'll be doing a show on racism, finances, and taxation, as well as giving you some tips on how to do for self. So you can join me back here in 2 weeks for a message to the Black Fam, and we will see you then. Peace.
Black Power family, I want you to get on this joint. Speak from the soul, bro.
Dear white supremacy, you thought that you could finish me, but